Hi, welcome to Gut Therapy. I'm Mariu, and today's conversation is one that is very close to my heart because it features one of my clients. Escarlin had gallbladder removal surgery when she was a teen, and in her adult life, she started experiencing gastritis, symptoms associated with SIBO, and a lot of food intolerances. This woman has been through it, and she is now on the other side. I hope that you take a lot of value out of this conversation because you're going to learn how she used conventional medicine and holistic practices to heal her gut. Escarlin, so good to see you. Before we started the podcast, you told me that you had sushi for the first time yesterday. Tell me how that went.
I decided to venture out and go to one of my favorite sushi spots. I tolerated it well and I had no issues. So that was very exciting. I haven't been to a restaurant in 8 months.
Okay, let's talk about why, right? So we jokingly say that you're like the 1%. Like you had so many gut issues coming in, like things got hard, and then you ultimately like got it to the other side, which is like so inspiring. So Caroline, can you tell me a little bit about what last year was for you? Like I think you contacted me around May or June, July, I don't know, of last year. How was summer of last year for you?
Unfortunately, last year my health took a turn and I was in the worst possible condition. I don't think I was leaving my house very often because my digestive issues were very unpredictable. I just wasn't sure when I was going to have a flare up, when something was going to hurt my stomach. So last summer, I pretty much was home very often and not outside.
I hear that. And can you tell me a little bit about what your gut issues were like? What were you diagnosed with, and how was that experience? What were your symptoms back then?
Yeah, so my symptoms were I had very low digestive enzymes. I also had bloating, acid reflux.
And if I may, you had a gallbladder removal surgery like many
Yes,
years prior, right?
when I was 19, I had my gallbladder removed. So some of these symptoms were sort of normalized for me, where I just thought, I got my gallbladder removed and this is what happens.
Yeah. It happens a lot, right? Like, because, okay, now that you have this removed, like, people expect that, okay, my digestion will never be the same. And then things start escalating, and then you're like, okay, but now they have never been the same. Is that something you experience?
In the beginning, I just normalized it, but then my symptoms got a lot worse. So I was losing a lot of weight very quickly. It was literally coming out my system. So I really wasn't getting any nutrients from anything that I was eating. I was physically so tired because again, the food was just not staying in my system. My energy levels were really low, and I just mentally was struggling because, like, I'm a very healthy girl, or at least I used to try to be as much as I could have. And so seeing my body go through all these changes was really challenging.
I remember when we first got together, I was very inspired by how much you really care about understanding. Not only want to heal, you wanted to understand why this happened, as in like, I don't want this to happen ever again. Let me know exactly what's going on. So you did a lot of research. You were like a really good student.
That's something that helps me, but also doesn't help me at the same time because then I really look into things. But I think, living with these gut issues for so long and hitting this point in my life, it really made me dig deeper as to what is going on. Like, yes, I have my gallbladder removed, but what else is contributing to that? Because I obviously observe other people as well, and they're not experiencing what I'm experiencing. And I think that that also was kind of like a reality check. Like, why do I feel this way? And another person eats the same meal and feels fine.
Okay, so at some point you had a bunch of different practitioners helping you out throughout the entire thing, right? You had two doctors, you had me, and you had an insurance dietitian. So how do you feel like everything came together for you? Like, what do you draw out of each practitioner?
Yeah. So with the insurance dietitian, I was able to follow a low FODMAP diet. And that was my starting point because I needed to figure out what was causing me. I think I had a lot of trouble pinpointing what specific food because sometimes I would eat a meal yesterday and then have it again the next day. Had no reaction yesterday, but then had a reaction today, and it just didn't make any sense. So, with the dietitian that I got, I was able to remove a lot of foods from my diet and write down reactions and journal it. However, long term wise, that was not going to be something that was sustainable for me. And then this is where Mariu came in the picture because she talks a lot about how we're not supposed to restrict these diets. And so I started to expand my diet a lot more with her. And I also feel like part of that low FODMAP diet could have contributed to some like not getting a lot of the right foods for my gut microbiome.
You know, I jokingly say all the time that it's just like, oh, the low FODMAP diet is my nemesis. But it's not that I hate the low FODMAP diet, it's a tool, right? But it's just like
Mm.
we are never taught like when and how and for how long we should use this tool and what are the things that we need to hit, right? So a lot of us are in this like cycle of diets, that elimination diet loop, and then we feel really good at the beginning and then something changes, and it's when that is our call to reintroduce more foods. Do you feel like that was kind of for you?
And I would say that was honestly the point in my healing journey that changed the game, I will say, because I think, when I started to introduce more foods, my gut was in way better condition. I started to see even more improvements in my symptoms.
Yeah. And Escarlin, tell me a little bit about the foods that some of the foods that you've been able to reintroduce now after you've been healing your gut. You're still in the process. You know, you had some sushi. Have you had some coffee yet?
Yes, I did have coffee actually this week.
Yes.
And I was so excited for it because I am a coffee lover. And I think prior to this, I was way too afraid to even think about introducing coffee. But I've gotten to a point in my journey where I feel very comfortable introducing more foods in my diet. So I was ecstatic when I had coffee and I had absolutely no reaction. I was waiting for it and it never happened. Which
You're
was,
bracing.
yeah, I was like, all right, when is it coming? When am I gonna have like the burps or like the acid coming up? And I didn't have it. And I was like, that's a true sign that my body is healing, that I am able to tolerate coffee again. So that's one. I've had sushi this week as well. Sushi was something that I loved prior to this whole healing journey, but I did have to eliminate it because the rice does have some vinegar and it's a little acidic. And I truly was very dedicated to the phase of not having anything that irritates my esophagus. So I really tried to not have any of those foods. And I knew that I would eventually get to the point where I can reintroduce, but I just had to wait for the time where, my gut was ready for it.
We jokingly say that you're like the 1% because like you've gone through a lot, and that's why you've been like so cautious, you know, in taking your steps, because obviously we want to minimize pain. You know, for most people, like healing does happen a little faster, which is why I was like, let's bring the complete opposite of the spectrum. It's like somebody who's healing was steady, was slow but steady, which was you. And you still, like, you had so many reasons to believe that you couldn't heal, and you did, which is
Yeah.
so amazing.
It's nice to be on the other side of healing now, I will tell you that.
Now, Scarlett, to finalize, I want to ask you what was instrumental for you in your healing journey? What were the factors that helped you the most? Was it food? Was it mindset? Was it coaching, regulation, supplements? What were the top 2 or 3 things that were like, okay, this is really, really moved the needle and helped me?
Yeah, I think it was honestly a combination of things. I don't think that I would have been able to heal the way that I have if it wasn't for a little bit of everything. I had the supplements, I had the coaching, I had, the doctor's input, I had medicine, which the PPIs, they aren't, the best long term. I got to a point where I my body needed it
Yeah.
to heal, and now I'm able to come off of them as well. Also, I think nervous system regulation was a big piece. So I would say my top two would have to be food and nervous system regulation. I think food because when I was restricting, I was not seeing much results. And it wasn't until I started to reintroduce more foods into my diet that I saw that I was seeing results. The second thing is the nervous system regulation. And I say this because I was in fight or flight mode right before I met Mariu. And I will tell you that I really regulated my nervous
Yeah.
system. I did a lot of breathing, meditation, somatic exercises.
We banned
Um,
ChatGPT for a little bit.
yes, I had to ban ChatGPT because unfortunately, every time I went to the doctors or a test came back, I was looking on there to see what that meant, why this happened, what was I doing to contribute to it. So I had to completely not go on it. But it definitely helped me not overthink things and just really focus. And this was very important, not focusing on diagnosis, not focusing on anything other than healing. And that was my main focus. And that really changed it for me because prior to this, I was my own worst enemy.
Something that you said about foods and reintroducing foods that changed everything. When we have gut issues, when we have gastritis and pain and acid coming up, it almost feels like food is the enemy. And so it is so interesting that coming from somebody who's like food used to hurt her, realizing that food was like your solution. You just needed to lower inflammation a little bit. But once you did that, now food, because food is nutrients, right? And your body needs nutrients to work. So when you started adding more foods in, then your body started getting more nutrients, and so like it repair, right? Now it has all the materials to repair. And that's what I like to tell people. It's just like you did a low FODMAP diet, but you didn't do it forever, right? It's just like a very specific moment to like find triggers, then we lower inflammation, and now it's time to reintroduce. And when you reintroduce, we heal. And then of course, obviously, nervous system regulation is just like want to drill it into everyone's mind, because fight or flight, sympathetic, it's just like one thing that we don't realize it because we're so used to it. But it's just like how can you heal when you're in a state of tension, right? You're like, ugh, grasping. It's when we relax that the body's able to heal. So, and that's what your
Yeah, and
body
I
did.
think another important thing is like what is out there, like resource wise, because I think when I did get diagnosed with gastritis, I remember getting a book, How to Heal Gastritis, and it was a very restrictive diet, like to the point where like I couldn't have salt. And and I'm telling you, you get very stuck on the diagnosis that you're not like really truly healing your body because you're eliminating so many good things that can actually help you in the long run. Telling
Yeah.
me to, I kind of wish I never restricted that early on because I think that honestly was another piece of my gut microbiome going downhill. Just being on these very restrictive diets that truly weren't beneficial.
Yeah, and honestly, like that book, I know exactly which book you're talking about, and it's just like so interesting to me that that was even published. Like I remember you in one of our earlier sessions, like, hey, like you can have herbs. Let's put a lot of rosemary and things. This is gonna be good for you, and you're like, ah.
Yeah, I remember coming to you and I was like, do I have to give up adobo? Because, being a Latina, like that's our main ingredient. And, it wasn't until I actually gave it up and started using a lot of herbs that I used to incorporate before, I started to really, enjoy my foods even more with these new
Going back to being Latina, like adobo, back in the day, it was just a bunch of herbs. Now it's like a processed seasoning these days, but like it really comes down to just a bunch of herbs that were dry and processed. I think every cultural food is healthy. It just becomes unhealthy when we start industrializing it, right? Adobo, like lots of oils and things like that. When before, like you just have natural source of fat. This is a topic for another day, but it's just like I'm so passionate because when people tell me that, it's just like, oh yeah, I am Mexican or I'm some other, region of Latinidad. I cannot have what I like. It's like, no, you can. You just need to make some changes, get it
yeah.
back to the roots rather than the more industrialized way, which is what we've been eating.
Yeah, and they do sell one that has minimal ingredients. There are, healthier options if you still want to include that in your diet. Because I think a big piece of me had a hard time with, removing foods that are culturally important to me. And so that's where I struggled the most in the beginning of my journey.
Absolutely. And the whole point is to bring them back, honestly. That's the
Yeah.
whole point. You are in the process of reintroducing foods, and you will see soon, as Carling, I have no doubt about it, that in just like in a matter of weeks, it could be 4 weeks, it could be 12 weeks, you're going to come across onion and garlic and you're gonna be fine. Once the SIBO is gone, once all of that, which is like you are in the process, I just want to keep encouraging you because I've seen it and you are right there. We know that it's taking you a little longer, but you've been doing that and you've been drawing so much meaning out of this process too, which is so beautiful to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I truly believe that my gut has the ability to fully heal. And, with some of these intolerances, I can see in the long run also, bringing the inflammation down completely and then being able to reintroduce the fructose with having no issues whatsoever. So I strongly believe that my gut has been through every possible thing in the world that there's nothing that it wouldn't be able to overpower.
I know. Oh my God, this is so beautiful. Escarlin, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for just like sharing your message. I know that you have a future in the space somewhere. If I may say that you want to share more holistic healing, and I know that you have a gift for it.
I see it in the future as well.
Well, thank you, Scarling.
All right, thank you.
Bye. You know what? Something that really stuck with me in that conversation was when Scarlett said that she wishes she had never restricted so many foods so early on. Just like you heard from Scarlett's journey, her healing really started happening when she reintroduced foods. Elimination is really just about trying to mitigate inflammation, but it's not the thing that heals inflammation. It's just a tool in this vast toolbox of things that we could use to heal the gut. Another factor that was instrumental on Scarlett's healing journey was the coaching and the mindset. We did some things, right? Like not using ChatGPT at all and just keeping the focus on the healing instead of the focus on the diagnosis. A lot of the times people see the word GERD or the word gastritis and they feel overwhelmed. But when we look underneath the hood of those diagnoses, we just see symptoms. And that's how I do it in my practice. We just look at symptoms. Oh, do you have difficulty swallowing? We are going to look at esophageal health. Do you have gastritis pain? Then it's all about lowering inflammation. So when you look at symptoms rather than looking at the whole diagnosis, it makes healing so much easier and so much more attainable. And honestly, we didn't even scratch the surface of everything that she went through and everything that we did in order to help her body heal. But I hope this video gives you hope and to kind of see what healing looks like, especially if you have very complex gut conditions that nobody seems to quote unquote figure out. You're probably just needing the right coaching, the right approach, especially if you already have a specialist on your side. You know, she had a conventional doctor, she had dietitians, and it wasn't until we were able to put it all together in a comprehensive plan with additional coaching and tools of healing holistically that everything came into place. So if you're being called to this kind of support, my books are open for one-on-one coaching applications. If you want to enjoy eating food again, if you want to reintroduce foods that you have eliminated for years, if you want to enjoy coffee, or if you just like simply want to have a normal life where your gut is not ruling every single aspect of it, this may be the right step for you, and we can get in touch via a discovery call. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please give this video a thumbs up, comment, just leave it some love so the algorithm can do its thing. I'll see you then.